hard to believe that November's here, but after eating 10 pounds of candy late last night, that's my yearly reminder that it's time to coach some ball. So it's I'm really excited to get this team on the court and get back to playing. And we'll be a shell of who we are on Wednesday. This is not my first year here. I would hope you guys have been covering me. I coach exhibition games and script. You don't see the scrimmages, but I don't coach those games to maximize minutes and put rotations in place. On the contrary, I'm trying to get everyone game experience, mess around with different lineups, just to get a feel for good, bad, indifferent. Sometimes you show film to show guys what they're doing right. Other times you show film to guys so they can see themselves why what they mess up in practice has to be corrected, because then they mess up the game. And that's not a negative. That's just a teaching tool. It's the journey that we all have to accept and embrace as we sign up for what we do. So, but with all that said, I'm super excited. I know the players are. I know they can't wait. The returning guys can't wait to get back on the court and kind of get back to who we are. We've prepared the way we're used to this season, and I think they feel more comfortable about it. And the new guys can't wait to put that uniform on and get in front of the fans. And so it's away we go. And I'm sure I won't be very chipper for the next 3 months, but I hope you guys understand I'll be a little busy here for the next 3-4 months.
Dave, you can go ahead and get us started.
Hey, Frank, thanks for doing this today. Just a couple for you. One, is everybody healthy?
Yeah. The two oldest guys are kind of nicked up right now, and Keyshawn and Jermaine. I doubt that either will play on Thursday. If that game counted, they're both healthy enough to play. But you see, tomorrow's a mandatory day off, right, because of voting. And then Fridays are scheduled day off for the week. So it's a good little window to try and let their bodies heal up best we can. So they're doing some stuff. And like I said, if they were healthy enough to go, if it was a game that would actually, for lack of better words, count, they strap it up and go. But I think it's a smart idea to utilize these days to let their bodies be healthy, because it actually starts this week, but then starting next week they count, and then it just never ends. So,
and then I know that what we see Thursday might not be what we see for the year, obviously, but do you kind of have a good idea what your starting five will look like once they do start to count, even with Jermaine and Key banged up?
I got a feel. Today's the first day in practice where I actually pick the teams. I rarely pick the teams. I let them kind of put themselves on whatever team they want. And I need everyone to learn, not just my top 6, 7, 8 guys. I need everyone to understand and let's remember where I coach at South Carolina, where we have the most mysterious injuries in the history of mankind in male sports. So, players 13, 14, 15, 16. And like we had a couple years ago, we even had to go across the street to the Strom and find 2 bodies to help us get to the finish line. And heck, one of them, I turned around, I tried to put him in the game at Missouri. I didn't even know his name. I was like, yo, what's this guy's name over here? And so it's we got to get everyone ready to go. But Dave, I've got a pretty good feel for what way that's trending right now.
Colin?
Yeah, Frank, you mentioned scrimmages, and I don't know how much you can talk about them, but do you feel like you got what you wanted to out of, I guess, the not so secret scrimmage you guys had a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I sure do. It's we played without Jermaine and Keyshawn, and they practiced. Jermaine at the time, Jermaine had his wisdom teeth pulled, so we we didn't play them for obvious reasons. I've had that done. That's no fun. And I thought, we there's some things we didn't do well. I didn't think we played with the physicality that this team practices with, especially in the interior. We didn't get to the foul line, but that's all right. That's all part of it. It's the first time that all those guys actually played together. There was like most things when you do it the first time, there's a little nervous energy to what you're doing. But I saw a lot of good. I had a couple guys say to me, "Man, I got back cut. I gotta get better at that, man." I was like, "Good." They're like, "Yeah, but that's the problem." I said, "No, you don't understand. Guys getting back cut right now is music to my ears, because that means you're actually trying to deny, which is a big part of what we do." So, and I think we've made tremendous progress in the last 7-8 days from teaching those defensive concepts.
Joe?
Coach, when it comes to the scrimmage game, what do you want to see just from how the guys are cohesive on the floor when they're playing? And then on the flip side, on the bench, do you want to see your guys really communicating, talking, and encouraging each other throughout the exhibition, just to get a sense of how guys are going to support each other throughout the season and games?
Yeah, and this is not a shot at my team the last couple of years. It's just who we were as a staff. We were this way. We've been a very quiet team, and 2 years ago, that's the beauty of being a head coach, is that regardless of what you do, there's always someone going to criticize. At the beginning was like Frank's just standing up yelling at everybody. Well, then 2 years ago, I had that real bad knee, so I couldn't stand up and sit down. It was just too damn painful. So I just stayed on the bench, and everyone said, "Well, Frank don't care. He just sits down." And then last year, because of the circumstances, I just couldn't beat the players up. And then everyone was like, "Well, now Frank doesn't yell at anybody. So what are we doing here?" So from a head coaching standpoint, it doesn't matter what you do. There's always a group of people are going to try and figure out what the opposite is, and that's what they're going to chime in on. But as a team, we've been a quiet team. Doesn't mean they didn't enjoy playing. They're just a quiet team. These guys tend to talk a lot more. So to your point of communication as a staff, Chuck is really comfortable with what we do now. It's, this is year number 5. So he's at peace with that. Will Bailey, I felt so bad for him last year because he takes the job and then the whole COVID conditions and just he couldn't learn what we did. He couldn't get on the floor and learn. But he really understands what we do a lot better now. And then Brian, who Brian's like a fire breathing dragon. I got to pull him off all the time. It's just like he wants to go, which is awesome. But so as a staff, we'll be better from that standpoint. And then on the court itself, I just want them to play in front of fans with referees against an opponent. I'm just looking, the stuff that we execute in practice, I want them to be able to go execute when someone's actually keeping score and there's an opponent. And so they comprehend, and then just use it as a teaching tool. Like I said earlier, some guys, they make certain mistakes in practice, and I don't care how much you repeat it to them, they don't correct it. And it's just part of the journey. It's the way it works. It don't make them bad people. It don't make them inferior learners. It's just, I'm stubborn on some things that I do in life, and I got to deal with failure before I understand that I got to adjust in my stubbornness. And I just spoke to our staff about that. Like when I was younger as a head coach, I was really, really stubborn on how to guard ball screens. And we had a game where Beasley scored 44 and Bill Walker scored 32, and we didn't win because of our inability to guard ball screens at Baylor. And I just wouldn't adjust. And that's, now I look back at that, I cheated that team that day because of my stubbornness. So it's all part of what we do to show guys where, like, I need you to adjust, because if you don't, it's going to be hard to play you, because it's going to cost us in a game. And Players want to win. All these kids feel, I keep calling kids, man. I'm around these guys from their ages 16 when you start recruiting them, and but they're young men now. And all these guys, they what's the word I'm looking for? They have a certain sense of bravado. Like when the game starts, I've got to take care of my team. And it's a journey to understand, like, I can't break structure off to do my own thing, because you're jeopardized and you become a liability to your team in that. So that's what all that'll be good for.
Michael?
Morning, Frank. Particularly with your freshmen, what have you seen out of those guys, especially Devin and Jacoby, over the last few weeks? And just what is the process like of evaluating freshmen, when you haven't seen them play in a college game yet? I mean, what kind of things do you look for, and just how does that process play out?
Yeah, by the way, before I answer your question, a little advice: if you have too many M&M with peanuts and peanut butter cups, you wake up with a stiff neck the next day. I mean, it is killing me. All three of those guys have shown unbelievable growth. Devin, Jacoby, and Taquan. I mean, all three of them. I told you guys when we signed them, I understand it was during the COVID deal, and recruiting was a little different. For whatever reason, those three guys weren't celebrated on the world of recruiting experts, or whatever you want to call them, which I really can care less what they think. By the way, my career has been pretty good without winning the recruiting experts popularity trophy. But those three guys are good, and they fit who we are. They're winners. They compete. They're not scared. All three are going to impact our team this year. All three are going to have a physical and a voice in our basketball team this year. And that's it's a credit to those three guys. But tremendous growth. Jacoby's really taken a step forward from adjusting to the speed, physicality. Devin's just wired to go. He's coming to get you like every play. And then Taquan is he's got a great mind, great, probably has the best hands on the team as far as being able to catch the ball, and has a tremendous feel. He's going to be really good as his career evolves, has a tremendous mind and feel for the game, and which as a coach, you can play him in the low post, you can play him at the elbow, you can put him in dribble handoffs at the 3-point line, because he understands what you're trying to get, and that gives you an unbelievable advantage as a big man.
Colin?
Yeah, Frank, I asked a couple of weeks ago about the point guard situation. Where are you in terms of evaluating that, and do you have a better feel in terms of what you're going to expect from that group, whether it be Chico, Jacoby, Eric, Jermaine, or anyone else you want to put at that spot?
I got a better feel. Obviously, I've been through the ropes with Jermaine for a while now. It's been 3 years. One of those years, he obviously didn't play in front of you guys, but he played in front of me in practice every day. I've got a lot of confidence in Jermaine. His mind is in a really good place right now, and being around some of these teammates, being around Reese and Stevenson has really helped him. Those two guys have won at the collegiate level. They're wired in a competitive way that like those two guys just want to be in the gym all day. Like if they didn't have to go to class, they'd be in the gym 18 hours a day. I mean, just shooting balls. And that's kind of gotten in Jermaine's space. And I say that in a positive way. It's that energy has got him excited about going out and playing with those guys. So, and then the two other guys that Chico's making an adjustment after playing point guard his whole life. He played some of it as a freshman, then at Murray, and then played very little of it as a sophomore. And I'm not the easiest guy in the world to show up and relearn how to play point guard, for and with. And but he's battled and Chico shoots the cover off the basketball. That's one thing I can tell you. You better guard him because he can shoot it. And he's made progress from the point guard spot in the last 7 to 10 practices. And Jacoby, like I said earlier, has taken a huge step forward here in the last handful of practices. He wasn't very good Saturday because we went 6 straight days, and Friday we went at night, and then Saturday we went at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he practiced like a wounded puppy on Saturday, which I kind of expected. He was a little beat up. He's dealing every play with Jermaine and Eric and Reese. Reese is an elite defender. James Reese. I mean, I don't put the cart in front of the horse because this thing's really hard. I'm not into predictions because then everyone comes back and, says that you're a moron or whatever, which is fine. Enough people say I'm a moron to start with, but James can be as good a defender as I've ever coached. I mean, he's elite defensively. Smart, tough, fast, athletic, anticipation. I mean, he's got the whole package, but he deals with those guys every single play. And so it's forced him to grow up. But I'm at peace with our point guard play. I think here's the great thing about it. I've got a guy in place that I know what he's going to do, and I got 2 guys that work so hard that they're going to continue to improve. So it gives me 3 guys in there that I really doubt that I'll lose faith in those 3 guys. And I didn't even mention Eric. Eric's a lot better off the ball, how we play. But I've got to get him more reps in practice at the point. I've cheated him of the reps. So when I throw him at the point, he's still not sure what the heck it is I want done. And so I've got to get him more reps there.
Joe?
Well, first of all, Coach, my wife gave away all my Reese's cups to all the trick-or-treaters. So you're lucky you even got to have some last night. None were saved for me. So I have to go buy more. Anyway, we're not talking about the bigs yet. I want to focus there for a second. How are those guys helping each other get better? I know you like the depth, the physicality, and how big they are, the length, the size. How have they improved and come together as a group collectively to really stand out and make each other better leading up to the first game of the season?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Joe, I had a mounds last night. I hadn't had mounds since I was a teenager. Holy cow. Little coconut covered chocolate. Are you kidding me? Jesus. I'm like, Dave, come on, Dave. Come on.
Can't do the coconut, man. Can't do it.
Come on. Joe, this team, I've had to pull them off each other a couple times. And I don't mean like physically punching each other in the head. I mean, just from a competitor standpoint, they help each other. They encourage each other. They praise each other. And when somebody doesn't bring it, they let them know. And which then allows me to coach basketball. And we're not there yet. We're still, we're a little up and down on some things we do. Our bigs, Wildens is obviously going into his 3rd year, but everyone, even he's technically a redshirt sophomore because everyone gets their year back. And so, everyone else is, Javon basically is a freshman. He poor guy. I mean, all those guys who were freshmen last year, they got nothing to get ready for the year. So he's basically a freshman. Josh, same way, basically a freshman. Taekwon, a freshman. AJ's obviously a little older. He's the grandfather on the team, and but it's our bigs. They just got to keep coming. I like their talent. I like their makeup. There's a sense of accepting responsibility but that if you don't accept responsibility on this team, James Reese, Eric Stevenson, one of them guys is coming for you. And it's, AJ does it with effort. AJ's not much of a raw, talk guy, but there's, you got to bring it or you're getting called out if you don't bring it in practice every day. So that's fun to be around.
Couple more. Colin?
Frank, with all these new guys, I know you took probably a bigger role on the off season and trying to get to know them and learn them and install things. Where do you feel like you are in terms of this group meshing together in terms of knowing each other, knowing you and knowing the staff and kind of what y'all are asking of them?
Yeah, I kept things very, very vanilla for a long portion of preseason for a reason. I needed us to understand our foundation, our structure, and not be worried about running plays or gimmick defenses for a certain play or opponent. I'm real happy. There's an understanding of the basics of what we do that I'm real happy with right now from an understanding standpoint. Now, there are a couple guys, I just told them, I said, this isn't like English now, where you can flunk the first test and now you get mad and you go back and read the first 3 chapters, and then the second test is up to chapter 4, and now you get caught up and you get an A on your second test. This is more like math. If you get left behind and you don't get through chapter 1, you got no chance at catching up on your own. Chapter 2 and 3 are coming, and in math, you get left behind. You're not passing. You never get caught up, and so there's a couple guys I worry about because everyone else has learned the foundation so quickly that I don't want them to get left behind. But I've been preparing them for the last, I don't know, 8 to 10 practices. That this week, even though our game this week doesn't count, we got games. Now we got to start getting game ready, which means now defense is not as vanilla as we tend to play in practice. It's now more geared up for an opponent or a play or the structure of an opponent. And then offensively, I gotta the simplicity of how we play is in place, and I'm confident with that. But I got to start being able to run plays in certain situations to attack certain matchups or take advantage of one of our players that's playing really well. And it's Sindarius and Dwayne and those guys, they didn't understand that as a freshman. I had to keep things very, very vanilla, and we had no point guard. But as they went through their careers, Sindarius a hell of a player. But I think because we understood our structure and the different little things we tried to do to take advantage of his talents, that's why he became one of the top scorers in the history of the school. Someone told me that if he had not missed those 6 games his senior year, he would have been the top scorer in the history of the school. So, but it's that's where we're at right now. We're getting ready to start getting a little bit more game ready, game specific. But I'm at peace with where we're at from a foundation and a understanding of our structure.
And I guess you mentioned candy a couple of times. Is there a Halloween costume you got to dress up as, or were you just munching?
Yeah, there is. But listen, I don't publicize. Let's take the long line of Frank Martin's social media. I don't publicize anything about myself professionally on social media. I don't publicize anything about my family on social media. I'm definitely not publicizing when I put an outfit on social media. Now, my wife, Mayor Benjamin, I took pictures with those two, and they tend to put that stuff on social media. So if you have access to their accounts, you'll find out. If not, you see me in tights will never happen.
Next up is Michael and then John.
Well, now I really want to track down this picture. So that's probably what I'm going to be working on all day now. But you've talked a lot about physicality with this team, and just curious, who are the main guys who have really brought that physicality that you've seen so far, and how do you go about, I guess, teaching guys who maybe that's not their personality or the way they play to be more physical?
Yeah, physicality. They all do it in different ways. And I've said this before, Michael. Physicality is not. Let me go grab a guy, or let me, put a forearm on someone's chest and knock them down. That's physicality is like different parts of the game, different things. They all do it in different ways, but Devin Carter's very physical in his own way. Eric Stevenson's very physical in his own way. James Reese, very physical. AJ Wilson, very physical. Jermaine's a physical player. Those are the guys that stand out. Wildens, I'm sorry, I didn't say him. He's the weight room does wonders for you. It teaches you not only mental strength because you're challenging yourself to do more, and that's not easy to do in the weight room. But now your body gets built up, and you can, as an athlete, man, when you're strong, it makes such a difference in how you play and your confidence along with your mind. And so because of those guys that I just mentioned, there's a certain sense of physicality that they bring every day. How do the other guys? Well, they got to practice against those guys every day. Like Josh Gray's always been like a pick and roll guy everywhere in high school and even last year at LSU when he did play. Now he's dealing with Wildens' physicality every play. So Josh is really, this is what you learn. You learn whether guys can do it or they're going to run away from it. And, they haven't run away from it. Same thing, from the guards. Jacoby, Chico, Devin, they don't, my son's a physical player. So you're in practice, then you don't, guys don't run away from that. And that's what gives me an excitement that we as a whole can become a real physical basketball team.
John?
Frank, a couple of things for you, and I apologize if these have been asked already, but about Brandon, wanted to know, what's the dynamic been like there with you guys? Do you find yourself doing anything differently because he's around, and also what kind of, how have you seen him grow as a player since he's been around you guys? How do you see him contributing this year?
John, it's been fun to be sitting in my office and get a text from my own son saying, "Hey, can I come watch film with you?" And that's been fun because I've never done that before, and it's been pretty neat. A couple times, just my wife will say, "Hey, Brandon's come over to dinner tonight," and and he comes in and eats dinner with us, and so that's been fun. 4 years ago, he had zero chance of even getting into one of our practices. The job Dickerson and his staff did at Upstate helped him grow. He had to play the 5 and the 4 for them at Upstate, and he's a young man that even at a young age always played on the interior and wanted to play on the perimeter, but he'd always end up on the interior. And so physicality, has not something that's ever pushed him away. So that's why that's kind of ingrained in him. But he's worked his tail off. I mean, he's grown as a perimeter player. His biggest adjustment right now is guarding the basketball. He's used to guarding bigs. Now he's having to go guard Devin Carter off the bounce or Keyshawn off the bounce. And that's just off the bounce is guarding cuts. When you guard bigs, you're usually guarding the screener. When you don't guard bigs, you're usually guarding the guy that's getting the screen and making that adjustment. And so instead of having to call the coverage, now he has to get through the screen. And it's a little different. But he's made adjustments and he's grown and he's working his tail off at it. I know his teammates respect him, and it has nothing to do with who his father is. He's earned that. It's been real neat. It's I'm sure here in about a week or so, there's going to be some days where he wished that I was going fishing somewhere rather than running practice, but that's okay. That's part of the journey. It's, if everything was red as roses all the time, man, what a boring life we'd all live. It's dealing with the whole deal. That's what lets you have great hairdos.